There's actually two terms that I want to define before we begin the reading for today. One is the Li. They were forms of rituals of proper behavior that were gradually codified into a system similar to the code of chivalry of medieval Europe. The word originally meant a religious sacrifice, but came to encompass all forms of human interaction and social behavior. And the six virtues were wisdom, benevolence, sagacity, righteousness, loyalty, and harmony. And it's interesting that they say sagacity, because sagacity does kind of mean like acuity, astuteness, understanding, intelligence, wisdom, and they already have wisdom in there. So just wanted to put those in there before we begin. In ancient times, when chasing those who fled, one never exceeded 100 paces. When following a retreating enemy, one never exceeded 3 days of movement. Thus, they demonstrated their adherence to the rites, or the Li. They did not exhaust the weakest among them, and they showed compassion to the wounded and sick. This showed their adherence to benevolence. They waited until all were in formation before they beat the drum to signal the attack. This highlighted their trustworthiness. They fought for righteousness and not for profit. This highlighted their adherence to righteousness. They were expert in determining whom to abandon and whom to pardon, according to their courage. They knew when to end and when to begin, highlighting their wisdom. These six virtues were taught in a timely manner and became the Tao of the people's ascent. This was their way. This has become the nature and government since antiquity. The nature of government since antiquity. And as for the first king's governance, they followed the way, or the Tao of heaven, established the suitability of the land, managed the virtue of the people, rectified names, and governed all things. They established the matters of the state, dividing salaries among the nobility. All of the dukes had hearts filled with joy. Some came from overseas to serve the state. The prisons were calm while the troops rested. This was the governance of sagacity and virtue. So this goes to speak to the benevolence, the origins of benevolence, and how to get that in your affairs, your system of governing, your system of coaching, your system of leading. And you want to have this this is all based off, right? Within the first three sentences, they talk about their adherence to the Li, or the code of chivalry. They treated people with trustworthiness. They were good to them. They highlighted in their adherence to righteousness, and they were courageous in whom to pardon or whom to abandon, based upon who was a good fighter, who was courageous, and who actually did what they were supposed to do when no one else was looking. And the wisdom, the sagacity, the virtue, all of this stuff leads back to not only having good troops on the battlefield, which means good employees, it also goes back to even the prisons were calm while the troops rested. And so I'm guessing, kind of based on the context clues, that it would have been the military that kept the prisoners in check back then. And so even if you can treat prisoners with respect, they are going to give you rest, and they're not going to act up. And so I think that's just something good to remember, that like you're going to attract more flies with honey rather than vinegar. And the better you treat people, just like from Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, that's what you want to be doing. You want to be treating people with benevolence, and you want to treat people like they know something, right? Like that's one of the tricks, is if you act like everybody you encounter knows something you don't know, then everyone's going to love you because they're going to think they're better than you. And it's a nice little trick to keep up your sleeve.